Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Uniben podcast. This is a show where we celebrate distinct alumni of our great institution and also providing the platform where they tell us their journey before, during, and after the University of Benin. And on today's episode, we have a medical doctor who is also a filmmaker. He was one time director of welfare student in the government of the University of Benin. He's Dr. Osaigbovo Eriamiantoe. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm
Yeah,
really excited to be here.
yeah. Let's go straight into it. Which comes first? I just want to go on with that. Which comes first? Filmmaking or medicine or medical practice? Which comes first for you? Because Uh, pardon me, because the vibe you give most times is that you just find this homely acceptance in filmmaking, if I will use that word.
I think this should be a likely exam question. And it's like asking which comes first, the egg or the chicken. I it will be very difficult to say actually. I love filmmaking. I love storytelling generally, and also I love medicine. As regards if we want to take it chronologically, I was a
Mhm.
storyteller before I became a doctor. Because
Okay.
before I became a doctor, I used to write in the forms of prose, poetry, and drama. Before I became a doctor, I used to do very creative things, and so chronologically, I would say I've always been a storyteller. Then, if you are talking about arranging it in the order of importance, I'm afraid to say that I may not have the answer, but I suspect I love filmmaking more.
Okay. You mentioned that you were a storyteller before you became a medical doctor. So
Yes.
why did you go ahead to study medicine? Why did you go into the creative arts? If that's what you felt you were very good at, especially before gaining admission to study medicine at our institution.
Actually, I I have no regret following the path I've followed. But however, I think to some extent, growing up in Benin City, most of us attended different schools. I attended Edo College and Uniben College at different times. Uniben College first, and later Edo College, and so most of our teachers um, told us about the very wonderful courses. You know, there were courses like medicine, law, engineering, accounting. Those were the courses that were really,
Not very professional.
yes, those were the courses that were very, very popular to us then. So then
Yeah.
to aspire to be a doctor was one of the biggest things I could think of at that particular time. And knowing what I know now, I think it was a good decision because you can actually be a storyteller irrespective of what you do. And that's the first
Mhm.
one. And the second reason was because when we when we watched things, when we sat down in the parlor of our parents and watched things like Hotel Jordan, Behind the Clouds, and some other things that were very popular there, we did not see filmmaking as an occupation because we actually did not know any filmmaker who told you that what he did was filmmaking. So I thought, and I think so many persons felt that you could do anything and still end up being a storyteller. Those are the reasons. And then we we there was no course like filmmaking in the university or the universities around us when I was growing up. The closest to it was maybe theater, maybe some other courses like that, but there was no course like filmmaking. perhaps if we are aware of the presence of such courses in schools around us, especially Uniben, I think maybe we would have been inspired or be motivated to study that.
Okay. How have you been able to manage these two distinct professions? Science on one hand and creative arts on the other hand. Is that not too much way to take it as a goal? Because these two are very serious business today, very serious professions today.
If I had a book called Osaigbovo Eriamiantoe, in the frequently asked questions, I'm sure this question would have been number one because I get to hear this question over and over again. I think it's very, very easy to marry um, medicine and filmmaking. Generally,
Okay.
yes, generally we tell stories even as doctors. In fact, in the medical curriculum, one of our courses is community health. And in community health, when you do your rural posting, a very vital aspect of it is um, telling stories through drama to the rural community. So you can simulate situations. Sometimes you write a drama, then you present it to pass your story, either on immunization or in any other public health issue. So medicine is closer to theater art than we look at it. And also in theater art, there's a course they call community theater. What they do most times is that they go to communities and they tell, they dramatize. And one of the major things they do while they dramatize is to talk about public health issues. For example, during COVID-19, they had to go to communities to tell them about COVID-19, to dramatize and they involve the members of the community to do this. So I think medicine and the art, medicine and filmmaking are so close. And then we have so many public health issues that people are not aware of. Who are the best people to tell them about the public health issues? There are so many conditions that doctors are very comfortable with. They know so much about it. They are aware of it. That some people in the community do not know. And then if a doctor sits you down and tell you about the daily happenings in the hospital, maybe a psychiatrist tells you about um, um, why trying to protect the why trying to protect the the identity of the patient, and they just tell you some things that happened there. You realize that these are things that um, should be dramatized and made known to the public. So I believe so seriously that medicine and filmmaking are so close. They are so connected. They are so related. And if you are passionate about anything, most times you don't you don't find it difficult trying to wed them together. So I believe the working between medicine and filmmaking is a very, very good union. It is a very wonderful matrimony. And I should encourage more doctors to go into filmmaking. And I should also encourage more filmmakers to explore things that are related to medicine.
That's okay. It seems Messi has never stopped you from venturing to other endeavors because it's on record as medical student you fight for the position of director of welfare students in your government.
Very much. Yeah.
HU academics and students. But how were you able to do this? And also during your legendary time, there was this 5 minutes ago, can you let us into how that came about, how that slogan came about, and the message you were trying to pass during your campaign there?
Okay, thank you very much. Um, Doctors are human beings, and human beings are political animals. So in our days in school, we we also encountered other things that people from other departments encountered. We had issues with accommodation. There were times we had issues with sanitation in our various hotels, and transportation was an issue at the time. So there was, um, it was, it was, it was what chose me. It was it was like saying the situations around nominated me to want to vie for that position. So when I told my friends I was contesting for the position of director of welfare, many of them were shocked because they felt that if the position of director of social had been zoned to Ugbo,
Okay.
then that should be the position to go for because then I was a musician, I was into the art. So I decided to contest for it, and I told myself while I was contesting, I had some very wonderful opponents, some very wonderful opponents that were on ground. We had Obiora Ilora, we had Afam, we had Abdul Razak, we had John Senator. These were guys that were very popular and they wanted to contest for that position. So I told myself, what do I have? And the biggest thing I had at that particular time was the fact that I was creative. So I told myself what I was going to do was to make this race as creative as possible. The first poster I came out with, the first thing I thought of was how do we tell these people that the first poster I came out with, what I thought of was um, what are the issues that are bedeviling our people? So the toilets were not in good shape, we had issues with transportation. So I decided to do the form of poster, and what I wrote in it was 5 minutes ago. Osaigbovo Eriamiantoe was here thinking about your welfare. So I told some of my friends who were females, who were in female hostel, to help me post them in the toilet of female hostel. So immediately you lock the door and you are in your private time, you are in your private time in the toilet, the first thing you see is the poster of this guy. And what it says is 5 minutes ago I was here thinking about your welfare. So if the toilets are bad, just know that I've been here before thinking about your welfare. And it was everywhere. So when I started complaining, somebody would tell you, Osaigbovo, I saw you 5 minutes ago in my toilet. And I'll tell you, yes, I was there thinking about your welfare. And there was this particular line I used to tell them, and I told them that um, the first two poems the first two poems I wrote were written in the toilet. When I was younger, maybe when I'm in the toilet, I'll just think and I'll write poems. So, however, since I came to Uniben, I've been unable to write poems because the toilet in Uniben, you're not comfortable enough for you to think. So I want to make our toilet so comfortable that you can think and we can get more poets. So it was really creative, and that became one of the most popular slogans that year. There were other wonderful slogans.
If
Obiora Lora's slogan was "The corn is right." The senator's slogan was "The Eagle has landed." My own slogan was 5 minutes ago that Bobo was here thinking about the welfare. I think to a large extent it was really very popular. And when I won,
uh,
the name stuck to me.
okay, let's go to when you won the election. Were you
Yeah.
able to actualize these promises you made to them, especially when it comes to infrastructure that deals with toilets and all that? What were your achievements? What can you say were your achievements? Yeah, you were a member of an executive, but as director of
Yeah.
welfare, there are some peculiarities that were assigned to you. What did you achieve as director of welfare?
Wow. To a large extent, I think uh, it was a very successful tenure. The president was Chris Akio, vice president was Julie Miriam, secretary general was Esther, and I was director of welfare. Lucia was PRO, and Famous was director of sport. Omokaro was um, Omokodian was director of finance, and we had the Amber director of socials, and the assistant secretary general was Alibu. Yeah, I think I can still recall the names of all our executive
Very
members. Uh,
yeah.
one of the one of the major things that we achieved was in the aspect of transportation. A few a few months before we came into office, um, we had a few buses, like three buses that had SUG bus written on it, SUG bus. So when I entered, I met with the outgone um, um, director of welfare and also spoke with the president. And I realized that those buses were actually not the property the of the union. That a few persons just had the buses and they wrote their name on it. But I just thought to myself that if like two or three buses can disguise to be SUV buses and be doing this type of work, that means if we decide to organize it and um, get more buses, we should be able to achieve more. So at that particular time, I can still remember clearly. I paid a visit to the, the GPO in um, Oba Market
Okay.
police station. In fact, the police
Okay.
station was very new there, the Oba Market police station. When I spoke with the GPO, and he told me that he was an alumnus of the University of Lagos, that he was very familiar with things like that. What I told him was that we are going to get some buses to, and these buses are going to fly this route. And so I want to beg that your officers do not um, stop them or collect anything from them because they are going to be the property of the student union government of the University of Benin. He said he had no problem with that. I met with the GPO in New Benin Police Station too. Then, because then one of the biggest stakeholders in transportation in Benin then was Chief Osamide Adin, popularly known as Bobiza. So I went with my committee members and we went to his residence. And what we told them was, I can still remember exactly what I told them. I told them that we are students. Unfortunately, we have very high nuisance value and we don't have any problem with protesting. However, we understand that protest is the last thing that happens. After consultation, consolidation, that's when confrontation comes. So we have come to converse. And what we want to inform you now is that we just purchased some buses. And these buses are the properties of the student union government of the University of Benin. So we don't want your boys to go near them because these people will not pay anything to you. So we went back to school and we announced that we needed people to come and register. And people registered with a certain amount of money, and every month, every day, there was an amount they were paying to the student union government. Meanwhile, a scheme like this that started shortly before we entered, but it's just that they had very few buses. So we now said our own, we now have to write the name. So when you register, you go and write your name, student union government, mass transit or something like that. I'm not so sure. So it started in less than 2 weeks. We doubled. We had, in fact, in less than 2 weeks, we had about 24 buses, and that was how it was. Incidentally, at about that particular time, the school had a committee that had that was trying to talk about getting back those taking over those buses. I wasn't a member of that committee, even if I was the director of welfare, I was not nominated for that committee, so I wasn't even aware that that was happening. So while this particular one was making achieving so much success, we didn't know that the school also had plans to take over the buses. we're lucky enough throughout our tenure, we were still in charge of the buses. But shortly after we left, the school took over from it. So most times, when we talk about the SUG bus, it's like the issue of the Nigerian independence. So somebody will say, Inaro did not move the motion for independence. But for Christ's sake, he was the first person that moved the motion for self governance. We know that Fani Kayode also moved the motion for independence, and so many other persons moved the motion. So if people ask now that, guy, I'm aware that your government was the government that brought about the student union, the SUG buses. One of the easiest way to answer is um, there were some buses that the name SUG bus on it, but it wasn't organized the way it is. It was when we entered. So we were the people that made that created the student union buses the way it looks like now, close to the way it looks like now. So, but what's most important is not who started it. I think what's most important is that we are part of creating a system that removes the stress, that removes the monopoly of bus drivers. Then bus drivers could just fix any price for a bus going to Lagos, going to Ring Road. But when we came in, we were able to bring in that price control. We also had some other great achievements. Um, I, I organized a concert and talk show on the 1st of December 2004, and it was on World AIDS Day. It was a concert and talk show. At that particular time, we realized that um, people were most Uniben students were not so excited to attend seminars or workshops. So what I thought was that why not organize a seminar, a concert and talk show.
You brought the
So
creativity
yeah,
side of you into
yeah. So initially the venue was supposed to be at main auditorium. We we also realized that we eventually did not get enough um, sponsors to want to help us drive the project. So it was to a large extent self-funded. So we just told ourselves few days to the time that you know what, we're going to do this at or two kappa. So that instead of forcing Mohammed to go to the mountain, let's just bring the
the
mountain
mountain.
to Mohammed.
Wow. Yeah.
So we did the concert and talk show at Otuka Park, and it was wonderful. Um, we were very lucky then. Then there was this NGO, Guest Power Initiative, run by one Dr. Mrs. Osakwe. So my office reached out to her, and she was able to um, bring, she was able to come for the event. She also brought in some volunteers who also came to speak to Uniben students. We had some musicians on ground. I I was still more thinking music. I was one of the musicians. Kingsley the comedian, Joke Messiah, Oriri was on ground. So it was cool. It was a concert and talk show. We did a few other things, and I think one of the biggest things that position showed to me or revealed to me was the fact that most student politicians are negatively influenced because of the various bottlenecks that people in administration place. For example, as a student union leader, you have a budget, you have things you want to do, then you send it to the floor of parliament, and you'll be shocked with how everything is. Most of the very important things will be removed. One of the projects I had then was that we had a few students who had acute asthmatic attack while I was in office. I also had a welfare hotline So if there's any emergency, just call the welfare hotline and
Mm.
you respond. So on many occasions we were informed when students had acute asthmatic attacks. So one of the things I wrote in my budget, I still have a copy of the budget, was that we're going to have some inhalers in various hostels
That's
close
it.
to the porters. So whereas in hostels like Ofo, you have inhalers in each unit. So that if there is an emergency, you also the first time before you just need there was one there was a time we had somebody who had an acute asthmatic attack in or two. People were just running around while they were trying to look for a car to take the person to health center. We had to wait for someone who was in a tree to run back to his room to get ventilator inhaler. You know what that means? So just imagine the porters had access to that.
Yeah.
It was never approved by the parliament. We also had plans to have some fire extinguishers in some of the units because at that particular time we had different there are many occasions we had fire issues. So what I felt was why wait for the emergency
Right.
response team from the fire unit? Why not have some of these things on ground? And another reason I also added that was somebody had told me that um, if there's anything you think the school is failing to do, tell them you want to do it in the form of budget. It may just open the eyes of somebody to say, oh, wow, that is not the responsibility of students. That is something we can do. Then let's do it. So those were part of the things that we experienced. But it was also a time to meet with Uniben students at that very young age. You are in position of authority where your fellow students could come and approach you and tell you that this was what they were passing through. Um, there were times you have to lead protests or join other schools for the protest. There were times where people had to protest to you because they
Mm.
felt your office was not doing enough. So it was a time to learn, and I really enjoyed that time. Even
Yeah.
2018, I was director of welfare SUG. But every moment I think of it, I'm always very happy.
What will you say are the greatest attributes you took from the University of Benin?
Uh, Uniben, some people call it the University of Life. It has so many things in common with life. One of the biggest things I learned from the University of Benin was resilience. Resilience. Um, the average Uniben graduate is very resilient, and most times those are attributes we got from or three and or four from the hostels, and that is one of them. Another thing I got from University of Benin was that it it improved my sense of humor. There's hardly any university student that will play up and become angry if you tell him anything that he does not like. In Uniben, it is very difficult for you to see somebody in a tree fighting. Why? Why you go fight? You not get mad. So you just be there and somebody throws a jab at you and the next thing you just look for a way to reply and so Uniben improved my sense of humor. It taught me how to make light anything you tell me. So you can just tell me now that guy, how far? Why you dey talk like this now? You just dey talk like person wey put hot yam for mouth. Then the next thing I will think of is bros. No, no, say yam don dey expensive. Na only big men dey chop yam. When last you chop yam? I mean, I cut for you the yam where they chop. Yes, I put up mouth yam for mouth. Everybody starts laughing, and so it it proved that. Then, very importantly, Uniben exposed me to some of the best minds in the world. Some of the best minds in the world. In medical school, Uniben exposed me to very intelligent and hardworking classmates. In the creative world, Uniben exposed me um, to very creative musicians, comedians. writers, dancers. Uniben give us that particular exposure. And in politics, I was so lucky that I learned from the best in Uniben. When I just got into Uniben, um, that Sonny Yaru was contesting for presidency. He had opponents like Oberaza and Efosa Ifawadia. And at that very early stage, I was one of the campaign managers of Sonny Yaru because I used to draw cartoons. So I did some cartoons for him. I also created some jingles playing around Uniben. So at that time, I could sit down in political meetings where people are trying to bring out strategies. So it was a very good baptism. Shortly after that, I learned under the tutelage of Efosa Ifawadia, the God rest his soul. That man was far ahead of his time. He was a political genius, and you, you sit down and you see him talk about politics, you see him strategize. So I also had people like Andioko. I had so many wonderful persons to learn from, and I'm also lucky to teach some people that came after me also. So Uniben exposed me to the best in all facets of life, and I'm so grateful for Uniben. And should I also say something? Yeah, I met my wife in Uniben. So Uniben also gave me a family.
That's good. Okay, let's talk about you meeting your wife in Uniben. Uh,
Yeah.
she's someone that I worked with. I have so much professional admiration for her. Most we have this popular saying that then as Uniben students that anything you start, any relationship you start, ends at Maingate.
At
How did
Maingate, yeah.
yours? Yeah, how did yours survive Maingate? How did yours move from the institution to now having a family?
Okay. I think I should write a handbook on this. How to take how to take your relationship beyond Monday. I I've always been a very lucky person because I most times I plan ahead. I know what I want most times. So when I got when I knew the picture of the woman I would want as a wife. I had some qualities that I looked forward to having in my wife. So when I found the person that had those qualities, at that particular time, I knew I'd met my wife. It's a very long story. Um, I
At that
I used
early
to
age, you already was the one.
yes. It's a very long story. I I had a friend, Jimmy Paul Coyote, God rest his soul. He was in theater art. While I was in school, I used to read in a campus. So sometimes I'll leave the door and go to a campus to read. Other times, sometimes I have rehearsals with my friends who were in a musical group in a campus. So a campus was like the second home for me. So there was this day I was reading in a campus, and there was this guy sitting very close to me. His name was Jimmy. I later found out his name was Jimmy Kokayode. And and Jimmy told me that guy that he was not enjoying what he was reading at all. And I asked him why, and he told me that he wanted to study law, but now he's in theater art, and he was not really happy with it. And I told him, wow, theater art, that's one of the best courses in the world. Oh. In fact, if I had the opportunity to be in theater art, I would be so excited. So at that particular stage, we started extending our books. So sometimes I'll go to a town to read. After reading for some hours, I'll just tell him, which book are you reading now? He goes, "Ah, it's a play, oh, single song by Femi or Sophie." I say, really? Let me just get it. Then I'll just go through it, I'll read it. So we became very close friends. In second semester, Jimmy told me that one of the biggest problems he had was GST, History of Science and Technology, Philosophy and History of Science and Technology. And he said that each time he tries to read it, he doesn't understand it. And that's the same thing with most of his classmates. I said, really? So if that's the issue, then you can just tell your classmates to organize tutorial, to organize a session. I'll come and take the tutorial. So the guy did. So the first time I went there, and it was cool. When I went back home, I told some of my friends, um, um, Ogenem Brume Wariri currently is an assistant professor in the London School of Hygiene. Then Oyibo Eketobori. So I told both of them that, guys, there's this tutorial that I take in a and I think we should just go. At least our friends are there. These guys have known Jimmy through me also. So Ori Osaigbovo was in the class, so was in that same set of setup. So these these guys agreed and we went to a common campus. So we taught the GSC that year. The good news is at the end of the day, the results came out and they got 100% pass. They said that was the first time it was happening. So we were so excited. After after that, I made it an annual thing. So I'll go to the Kenwan campus, then I'll take the tutorial. Incidentally, after the year after I started taking the tutorials was when I contested for Director of Welfare, Student Union Government. So naturally, one of the fringe benefits of taking tutorials in a Kenwan campus was that we got almost all the votes from the Kenwan campus.
Good.
Even, even if that was not the reason I took the tutorials, but I benefited from that. From that, so I started taking the tutorials. So the third year of taking the tutorials I that was the first set of mass communication. So while I took that class and I saw this very beautiful girl, and it is not ethical to have any relationship with your students. So I just pretended as if I did not see her. Like a year later, I met her again in fellowship at CFI, the combined fellowship. So I just, yeah, it's on campus, Abby. Yeah, so we became friends. We exchanged our contact and the relationship continued. 7 years later, we got married.
That's a beautiful one. We
Thank you,
just
thank
hope we
you.
have. Please, the handbook that you need to write, please sure you bring it out on time. So we have more successful relationship coming out from Maingate.
Yes, yes. I think I already have the title of the book, How to
Oh,
Take the Relationship Beyond Marriage.
so please, I should be acknowledging that book, please.
Yes, 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 yes. In fact, you will write the forward for that book.
Dr. Osaigbovo, lastly, this is about the creative side. What would you consider your greatest project so far? It's on record that you've made you've directed several films, made several films, and even getting a lot of recognition both in Nigeria and abroad. Which would you consider, which is the dearest to your heart, that is your greatest project so far?
Wow, this question will be difficult to answer. I think um, it will be it will be easier for me to answer this question by speaking about what actually informed my going into filmmaking in the first place. I'll be able to rate success based on the reason behind um, venturing into filmmaking. A few months after I got into the University of Benin to study medicine, I I realized that I was more an artist, and it was really crazy because I realized that what gave me joy so much was creating the art, either songs or writing, and so I thought that maybe I would be able to um, do both together, maybe carry on with medicine and the art. Then we got to 400 level. The 400 level, there was this particular day we were doing our junior posting in surgery. And we were in A&E when in UBT when they rushed in some patients. We were told that one of the patients had been involved in an accident, like they were coming from Lagos or so, and the surgeon, the senior reg there, um, assessed the patient and said they were taking one of the patient to the theater. So normally during your junior posting or introductory posting, one of the things we do is that when the doctors are going to the theater, students also join them. And that was the first time I was going to the theater. So I scrubbed up and so excited I joined them in the theater. We did a splenectomy. After some time they were through, so we all left the theater. But I was walking on top of the world, feeling like I succeeded in doing something. We just saved a life. When we got close to the A&E, we heard a very loud cry coming from the accident and emergency there in UBK. We inquired and we realized that people were crying because one of the guys that were also involved in that accident had died. The guy had head injury and they had taken him to do X-ray when he passed and died. And so it was really painful. So I felt really bad because I thought uh, that particular death was going to spoil our testimony. They had just saved the life. Now this bad news. Why can't we have 100%? While I was in that mood, one of our senior colleagues came to me and he tapped me on our shoulder and he said, "Young man, just relax. In medicine, you can only save one person at a time." So when after saying that and he left, I just thought of something. That is not the type of medicine I want to practice. I wanted the type of medicine where I could save so many persons at the same time. That means you can just say, wow, and everybody will be saved. Or you just treat people once. So medicine, you can only save one person at a time. So at that particular time, I lost interest in medicine the more, quite frankly. And I was in search of that type of medicine where I could save so many persons at the same time. So I used to tell my friends that I'm not sure I'll practice it because life is joy, not your business. Then we were in 500 level. We went for rural posting in Oguna, community health posting. They divided us into different groups, and one of the things they told us was that we were going to write dramas and present to the community. My own group was my own group gave me the assignment to write and direct the drama since they knew I was already into the creative aspect. I I wrote a drama, then we presented it. So it was at Egbekwe in the traditional Paramount rulers palace. While the playlet was going on, I also acted in it. While the playlet was going on, I realized the way I noticed the way people were um, so fixed, how their eyes were fixed on the stage. And at the end of the play, I realized that everybody in that room understood the message we wanted to pass or the message we were trying to pass. Then I told myself, I think I love this type of medicine. I've just treated close to 300 persons at the same time. Because the playlist was about the importance of immunization. And by just presenting that playlist, we just treated 300 persons on that topic. So I told myself, I think this should be the type of medicine I'll be doing. So I started writing the more. I, I left after my housemanship. I did a course in advertising and branding. I did some online courses in filmmaking, and I started making films. So I started making public health films mostly. So I could make a film and people that are more than 500 miles from where I was when I was shooting the film would sit down, watch the film, and understand it. I could make a film in 2015, and in 2020, people would still be able to watch it and get treated by it. So that became my my that became the force behind my filmmaking journey. Before I started making films about tradition, before I started making films about other aspects of life. So since public health was the biggest catalyst that drove me into making films, I think it would be right to say my biggest film so far should be a public health film. And I would like to choose Hooked. Hooked was a film on tramadol and codeine addiction by students. So after I made Hooked, it was nominated in um, public health film festival, the America Association of Public Health in America. They nominated it for their film festival. And, in fact, it was the only film from Africa that year. So while I was in the question and answer section of that festival, I felt on top of the world because this was this local boy from Benin speaking to the world about an issue. This is a guy who is a bloody medical officer speaking to professors of public health and others about a public health issue. And it was listed as a presentation, which means I was presenting a paper in the presence of professors all over the world. So I was really excited. And so maybe I'll pick that as my biggest thing so far. That will change soon.
Okay, thank you. Please, this movie Hook, where can we view it currently?
Okay. Shortly after I released the film, I kept it somewhere on YouTube. So I think I
Okay,
can make it available. Yeah. Let
okay,
me get it.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Welcome.
Osaigbovo. Thank you. Viewers, we have been speaking to a master of two theaters, a medical doctor and a filmmaker. And that been exciting and revealing how he has been able to manage medical practice and filmmaking. It was a wonderful discussion with Dr. Osaigbovo Eriamiantoe. He was also he is also a former director of welfare, student union coordinator of the University of Benin. Continue to subscribe to our channel and we'll bring you more exclusive interviews with distinguished alumni of the University of Benin. Bye for now.